The Horror with your hostess with the most, Jenna Bell, as always. So we are obviously continuing our franchise review of Psycho with the 1986, directed by Anthony Perkins, Psycho 3. So this one, I have to admit, like, is not one of my favorites, like, Psycho sequels. That definitely does belong to Psycho 2. But finally, actually making it through this movie after so many years, it's not too bad. It's got some of its perks and everything. But yeah. So basically, movie opens up, in a convent, so to speak, and we meet our first main character, Maureen, who wants to kind of flee and get out of the convent, for whatever reason. But as the movie kind of goes on, we see why she wants to kind of, like, leave. You know, she's a very conflicted person and everything, very conflicted woman, just so many, like, you know, nervous, things that she's nervous and scared about and everything with joining the convent, because she's almost just there to be a nun, almost about to be a nun and everything. So we, you know, throughout the movie, we kind of, like, see, like, why she's fleeing this and everything. But yeah, so we see her fleeing and everything. She's on the run, and she meets up with another one of our main characters, Daryl Duke, the Duke, and this guy is just, oh god, he's such a slimeball, dude. He's such a dirtbag. Your quintessential antagonist, just jerk. Just from, like, the get-go, you're just like, God, please let this guy die. Please let him die. But yeah, so she runs into him, and he's driving down the road or whatever. He picks her up, and she's kind of like, you know, you can kind of tell right off the bat she doesn't really want to be around this guy, but she's like, hey, you know what? It's a friggin' lift, whatever. So they're driving, and they have to stop because it's, like, pouring rain and everything, and so they're on the side of the road. They're trying to get some sleep and stuff. And of course, Duke is trying to, like, put the moves on Maureen, and she's not having it, and it's just like, so she hightails it out of there. She's like, screw this, I'm walking. I don't really care, whatever. So they go their separate ways, but of course their separate ways leads them to the Bates Motel. Now, of course, Duke gets there first, you know, and he sees that there's a help wanted sign and everything, and, you know, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, whatever, I just want, you know, a temporary gig, you know, just to get a little bit of money, fix my brakes, save a little money to get to LA and stuff, so, you know, whatever, you know. And of course Norman's kind of like, alright, fine, whatever. I think Norman kind of even picks up, like, okay, this is not, you know, the greatest person to be around. I think maybe, like, they don't bring this up, but I think maybe he kind of has a little bit of, like, kind of thinks a little bit of, like, Toomey from the previous movie and everything, so just kind of already knows, like, this is not really a good guy. But whatever, he's just like, well, I could use the help, whatever, not a big deal. Maureen, later on that day or the next day, ends up, you know, finding her way to the Bates Motel, sees Duke's car, and is just like, oh, like, you could tell just by her look, you could feel her just like, oh my god, really? Like, this is my freaking luck? Like, seriously? But she's like, you know what, I just need a place to stay. Like, she even says, like, I'm so tired. She needs some rest. She gets to her room and everything, and she just pretty much breaks down. Like, he has a pretty much a total breakdown and everything. And of course, you know, Norman, you know, sees her and instantly starts thinking of Janet Leigh's character from the first movie, and is, like, almost enthralled with her. It's like, oh my god. And now a lot of his sort of, like, mental illness comes back and starts really to, like, take hold of him, and plus with Mother, who at the end of the second one we find out that his mother was actually someone else instead of Norma. It was actually her sister. This one, not so much. We'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, like, we find another revelation. So Maureen, you know, she's in her room and everything. Norman, of course, you know, he's on duty. Maureen was put in cabin 1 by Duke, and of course, you know, Norman's kind of like, what? You put her in cabin 1? What? You know, of course, neither of them know the history of Norman, know what had happened over the years at this motel. So it wasn't until this reporter kind of shows up and was talking to Duke one night of like, hey, this is what happened. Like, anything that you can kind of, you know, give me information on and stuff would be great. I'll pay you. And she even says too to Duke, like, yeah, he started to act a little like unusual, but I'm not sure if that's just him, if he was nervous, if he was uncomfortable, but it seemed a little off. So of course Duke now is kind of like, trying to like think of ways to play both fields between them. And then meanwhile, Maureen, who's in her room, Norman's like staring in at her, watching her, and he sees that she's getting ready to take a shower or something. So of course he kind of goes off, and next thing we know, he's in there as Mother in the bathroom, and kind of stops for a second. He's about to stab her, but then kind of stops and is like, we notice Maureen in the bathtub, and we notice that the water is reddish. You kind of realize, like, oh shit, she slit her wrist. She's trying to take her own life. And because she's lost so much blood at this point, she kind of hallucinates and thinks, doesn't realize that it's Norman dressed up as his mother, almost going to kill her. But instead, she thinks it's the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary, there to save her and everything. So that kind of, interestingly enough, gives her sort of a new lease on life. Like, she's starting to, like, figure some things out. It's almost like she's reborn again. So we kind of see that relationship, like, unfold a little bit and everything. She kind of, like, owes, she feels like she owes a lot to Norman because, he kind of saved her and, let her stay at the motel for a few days just to, sort some things out. And then, yeah, like, just, this movie is, like, it is actually pretty decent. I do have to give it some credit. But yeah, and, with Norman, we see him really, like I was saying, we really kind of see him, his whole, like, mental stability really kind of decline pretty quickly. There's a lot of things that are stirring up old memories and everything, and it's a shame because, you are kind of like, no, Norman, like, no, you don't, there's certain things you want him to do, but at the same time you don't. Like, for instance, like the Duke character, like I said, you want him to like, die so badly, but at the same time it's like, no, Norman, don't kill him, because that's just, like, feeding into everyone's, thought on you of being the psycho and everything. Like, don't do it. But yeah, I mean, he kills him. He kills a couple of other people and everything in the process, because he just pretty much is mentally cracked, basically. So yeah, and then we also come to find out of speaking about his mother. As I was saying, at the end of part 2, we realized that Norma wasn't his biological mother. Supposedly, it was his or her sister that was his mother and everything, but she was too young. Blah blah blah. This one, we come to find out that no, Norma was actually his mother. She gave birth to him and everything, but then her sister, Emma, was like, basically crazy herself and became obsessed with Norma's husband and ended up killing Norma's husband in jealousy. So this movie definitely, as much as, like, just very much like, Psycho 1 and stuff, and Psycho 2, dealing with, like, someone's mental state of health and everything, and, like, split personalities, maybe even schizophrenia. This one kind of deals with, another topic within the same, like, mental illness and everything. Is it, genetic? Is it inherited? Is it, heredity that, this kind of mental illness can be passed down to generation to generation? In a way I can kind of see it. Like, there's a lot of different mental illness related issues that have affected many members of my extended family, including myself, like, like depression and stuff, like severe depression. And I actually had a very close relative, an aunt actually, who um, had schizophrenia, and that unto itself is very, very scary. So, um, but just things like that. So like, when I see something like this, it doesn't upset me. Like, I know some people, especially too, like, I know, like, last year with Split, a lot of people were up in arms of like, oh, it's mental illness, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's someone like me who I've admitted, I've seen this firsthand. I'm not bothered by it, especially in movies like this, trying to kind of explain it and just showing like the horrors of it. It doesn't bother me. I think, these both those movies have been done in good taste, so I'm not even bothered by it. I kind of like it because I'd like to see more of that in horror movies. I'm just saying. But yeah, this movie does kind of try and tackle that of, like I said, is it heredity? Is it, handed down to generation to generation? Or some of us just kind of, because of our family history, kind of pre-exposed to some of these that are kind of like out of our sort of reach and stuff, or out of our hands. So, but yeah, I mean, the movie itself is pretty good. At the end, of course, we see that Norman kind of gets caught. They're in, like, the cops were even like, dude, like, really, Norman? Like, we were all rooting for you. Like, we cannot believe you did this. Like, seriously, we were all on your side. Like, oh my god. And Norman Bates, I love the last, like, line of this movie, and I think it's so true. He's like, well, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I will finally be free. I'll finally be free. And he kind of looks at the house, and it, like, in a weird way, he will, because he knows that, like, if he's in jail, he's not going to have to worry about these mother illusions coming back to him and everything. So, but yeah, that's my little take on Psycho 3. Let me know what you guys think about the movie, or even like the whole mental illness being kind of like passed down. Do you think it's heredity, or do you think it just kind of luck of the draw, so to speak? I probably shouldn't say luck of the draw, but in the cards itself. So let me know in the comments, and as always, stay creepy, classy, and a little bit sassy.